Welcome, everyone, to the PI Playbook Podcast, a show where I get inside the huddle with successful personal injury attorneys and find out what's worked well for their firm and where they see their firm moving forward. I'm really excited about today's conversation. I'm joined by Davey Jones, the managing partner at Jones Law Partners in Alexandria, Louisiana. What caught my attention about Davey's story is something he wrote on his about page, that he believes the practice of law is an honor, not a privilege. And he backs that up with how he runs his firm. He's kept his caseload intentionally small since founding the firm in 2009 so that he can deeply know every aspect of every case he takes on. Growing up in central Louisiana and graduating from Holy Savior Menard and now raising his own family there, Davey's built a practice around a mission statement you don't hear every day: helping good people through bad times. Davey, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. On your site, you talk about how the practice of law is an honor and not a privilege. That's not something you hear every day from lawyers. So when did that distinction start shaping how you actually run your practice day to day?
Man, yeah, I wrote that a long time ago, so it's been a while since I've thought that through, but yeah, it certainly holds true today. When did it begin? But before I became a lawyer, I guess some background. So my family has a lot of different areas covered in professional life, but no lawyers, never been any lawyers in my family. And so that was the driving force for me to become a lawyer, that I thought that I might be able to contribute somehow to my family by practicing law. Thankfully, they hadn't needed me much, which is good. But I use that just as kind of a lead into it's a privilege because it's special. Not everybody can become lawyers. It's not given. It's earned, and it can be taken away, right? Yeah. So we need to appreciate the practice for that ability to help people through bad times, which is our slogan here, is something that comes along with that privilege.
Yeah. And so how do you kind of maintain that ethos within your firm culture as you've added on other attorneys and staff members and trying to help as many clients as you can?
Yeah, we try to establish a culture here. We're very family oriented in our partnership with our staff and our lawyers. So just making sure that they understand where we're headed, that we're client oriented, that we serve our clients and each other. And so it's important to build that culture. And an example, not in words, right? And you can say it all day long, but if you don't actually practice it, what does it matter? So we try to keep each other happy and content. We talk a lot about mental health here. We make sure that nobody's working overtime except the lawyers when they need to. We mandatory lunch breaks, and so right, we put it into practice. We put it into practice that it's a culture of community service and proper work ethic, and so that none of it's taken advantage of.
You opened the Jones Law Firm in November 2009. No employees, no roof, no sign, small clientele. It's obviously a pretty humbling place to start. What was the trigger that made you decide that that was the moment to go out on your own versus staying in a more stable environment?
It was not voluntary. I came out of clerking for a judge here in Refuge Parish in '08. I got hired by a partnership of two lawyers right after that. One of the partners hired me and the other partner fired me. So I was kicked to the curb, man. Yeah. And so just the way that it developed, I had a pretty good following of clients. I had kind of a foundation that wanted to follow me from that partnership. And of course, and we left on good terms. And so we gave all of the clients the option, as we're required to do, to stay with that partners or to go with me as I started my new thing. So I had kind of a foundation of clients, which helped me get started instead of just hanging a shingle cold. And I certainly don't want to speak badly about those partners. It was financial. One of the partners thought I wasn't making as much money as I thought I was for the firm, and so it just turned into a budgeting thing, and they let me go for that reason, which was fine. So right, so I've always been self motivated. I've always had visions of growth and scale, and working for myself was always something that I had in mind. So that was the time, right? It kind of was forced on me, but it worked out to be the right move for my scaling and for my family at the time. Though it was tough, being on your own, trying to manage it all and get bills paid was definitely scary. But God has a way of providing. Seemed like all of our monthly bills ended up getting paid some way or another, and so just been fortunate that played out the way that it did.
Sure. And so let's kind of talk about how your firm has grown and evolved over the 26 years, focusing more primarily probably on the last, I don't know, 5 to 10, or since
Right.
2020 seems like a big turning point for a lot of firms. So where is the Jones Law Firm now? What kind of cases do you guys take? How many attorneys do you have at the firm? Walk us through how the firm is currently comprised.
Sure. Yeah. So Jones Law Firm was me forever. I had an associate or two along the way that worked here and there, but no one stayed long term. And then I recruited another solo lawyer, Adam Huddleston, to talk about partnering up. And as he and I were talking about that idea, Carolyn Hines, who was our third partner, who came into the conversation, and we all had solo practices and thought we might be a good kind of fit for each other to complement each other, I suppose, on our different practice areas. So we just pulled the trigger on it. It probably was conversations for about 2 or 3 months, looking at numbers and logistics and what a partnership might be. So I take credit for recruiting them into it, and we all just meshed well and decided to pull the trigger on the partnership. Goodness, I guess that was 4 years ago. And then this might be fun to share. Investigating what a partnership looks like, how to manage client intake was difficult to navigate, right? How to manage expense sharing and then profit sharing was tough, right? So again, I like to be the managing partner. I wanted to be in control of all of that. My partners were happy to let me kind of take the lead on that. So my strategy was to not reinvent the wheel. I called some prominent lawyers around that I know that I've become friends with over the years through the practice who are part of bigger firms or who started their own firms. And I got lots of different mechanisms and methods that they used in their firms or their partnerships. Took what I liked, chunked out what I didn't like, and built this program that's been working really well. And I would summarize it by our partners share expenses, and then you keep what you kill. So after expenses are split, what I brought in through my kind of pod, my team within our partnership, the overflow from the expenses, I get to take home as a draw, and then same for our other partners. And then about a year ago, we hired a young lady who is licensed in Mississippi, and we brought her in to do some Social Security disability and to help Carolyn do some immigration work. And then Addison is her name. She just passed the bar 2 months ago, the Louisiana bar. So now she's practicing here, and we're giving her some of our overflow. So she's our first official associate. And we've got one more young man named Josh who's taking the bar in February to hopefully do the same. Right. So 3 partners now, 1 associate, one to be, and then our work, our types of client intake. Mine is primarily personal injury now, though it has historically been domestic law, doing divorces and custody. Carolyn focuses on immigration, which has become very topsy-turvy with the administration changes. And then Adam focuses on criminal defense. And so that's what I meant by hopefully we complement each other. Adam might get a criminal defense client who gets in a car accident and calls me, right? Or vice versa. Or I may have a divorce client who is arrested for domestic violence, and then Adam can handle that side. So we've had a little bit of interplay with those different types of cases. Not as much as I might have predicted, but it's been healthy. It's been good.
Yeah, that's interesting. So, I mean, and if you don't want to share any details about this, but if you have a situation like that where one of your clients has a case that Adam handles or vice versa, does that change how you guys kind of split the fee? Is there any sort of like co-counsel or referral fee as if you guys were in different firms, or is it just kind of
We hadn't done that yet. We've talked about it. Our
okay?
thought process is if I had some massive jury trial that I wanted co-counsel, that I wanted a second chair, that I'd bring one of them in, and we'd have to negotiate that fee split based on our profit sharing. We're all really good lawyers. We think. Maybe we're biased, and we haven't needed to call on each other for co-counsel type situations or to share caseloads with. So we're all pretty much self-sufficient, though we do leave that door open. And right, and that would be the idea. We talk about it, man. We all, it's been super important for us, like I said, talking about mental health and making sure everybody's happy, that culture we're creating. So it's been super important for us to be able to have that ability to have those types of conversations. There's not been a time in these last 4-ish years where we've fought or had controversy among partners. So I fully expect if we had to do some type of fee split structure like that, we'd figure it out. Yeah.
Got it. And as far as the current associate is concerned, is she doing personal injury? Is she doing immigration, criminal defense, a bit of all three? How does that going to work?
A bit of all. My vision is that she'll make her way into partner sooner rather than later. And so we're feeding her our overflow while strongly encouraging and helping her build her own client base. So she's got a salary, she gets some bonus structure, but she's also getting commission off of self-generated clients. And we're pushing that as much as possible. We want her to create her own pod here and eventually become partner so that we can replace her with another associate for the overflow from her and from ours. That's kind of the vision. I don't want employees who just come and check boxes and clock in and clock out. I want lawyers who are building their own thing. So to answer your question, she's doing whatever overflow we need her to do while she's trying to figure out what kind of lawyer she wants to be. And when she figures that out, we're going to help her find those clients and try to drive her as much of that business as we can so that she can become self-sufficient.
Got it. Your firm's tagline of helping good people through bad times. I mean, you're handling family law, personal injury, criminal defense, immigration, all high stress, high emotion type situations. So, how do you and your team stay calibrated to the mission of helping good people through bad times when it seems like everybody's overwhelmed? You're dealing with clients that are in high stress situations and they may be taking it out on you. How do you guys keep your eye on the prize?
Yeah, that's a great question and a very difficult thing to answer. Because all lawyers know we've got our blacklist clients. We've got the ones that are just tough. Um, Not all of them. I would say, well, I mean, the easy out is it's always the lawyer's fault, right? Every client can blame the lawyer, even in a divorce. The lawyer did this or that wrong, and it can't be my fault. It's got to be the lawyer's fault. So you shoulder some of that and realize that they are in the most difficult time of their life. So that's probably the best answer to your question. As long as we can keep it in perspective that whatever this person is dealing with, it is probably the most stressful and worst thing they have ever dealt with in their life, and that's why they called us. So keeping that in mind is probably the best way to keep the eye on the prize there, as you said. But it's tough, man. It's tough because it's a job, right? This is what we do for a living. I'm trying to feed my family through this type of work, and so it does become business at some point. And it's easy to lose track of the person behind the client, right? But it's important to not. It's important to make sure that that client feels like they are the most important client that I have, and every one of them. Uh, and so that's way easier said than done, of course. But I think as long as you're operating with that in the background, it comes through, and it can become your truth, even though it is difficult to do that.
I saw in a previous interview that you mentioned that domestic law kind of accidentally became your primary focus. It sort of chose you rather than you choosing it. What do you think it was about how you approached those early cases that made that area sort of gravitate towards you?
I think people think I'm good at it. It did. It shows me that the firm that I began working for, that was their primary focus. And so I don't think there's any lawyers that come out of law school planning to do divorce work, or very few, if any. But that was their primary focus. So I fell into doing the work that they had for me to do. And then it just kind of followed me as I started my own practice. Yeah, man, I guess I cared about it. I'm a perfectionist. I'm super detail oriented. I took a calling to tech really quickly. I became paperless as soon as I could. I converted to Mac before Mac was popular for word processing. Well, not before word processing. I mean, I'm not that old, but before lawyers were using Macs, I went to Mac and iPhone and iPads, and so I became very high tech. So I'd walk into the courtroom, and on a bad week, I'm in court 4 days a week for domestic stuff. So and we got a pretty small domestic bar here, and all good people, all good lawyers. But the judges get to know you, right? And the lawyers get to know you, and the judges' staff get to know you. And so I became known as the guy with the computer, and I had every file for every client accessible immediately through the cloud. And nobody else was doing that in Central Louisiana, 10 years ago, 15 years ago. And I think that was impressive. I think that kind of built me a reputation for being on point, for knowing my cases, for being ready for everything that popped up. And then having that structure, that organization, paperless, everything on the cloud, helped me prepare good trials. And so I put on good work in the courtroom, and that followed me pretty quickly. I'll tell you the greatest compliment I think I've gotten is two different types of referrals. The first is when the judge's staff, the people behind the scenes at the courthouse, call me for their own cases or send me their family for cases. That's one of my biggest compliments. Or when the defendant in a divorce case, who I have sued, either hires me later for a later divorce of their own, or sends their family to hire me. I always got a lot of pride out of that. If I treated the defendant with enough respect while representing my client, that they wanted to later hire me, I felt like that was a pretty good high five for sure.
How has tech, like, how is tech continuing to drive your practice as you've grown and as you're scaling and hiring new people and kind of shifting more from family to personal injury law, or even, how is tech currently driving your operations?
I think it's massive. Man, I don't know how old school lawyers did it. There's not enough time in the day. So I'm actually just now investigating AI for medical summaries and for demand letter drafting. It seems to be around for a bit, and they're kind of figuring it out, perfecting that process. I've got a demo right now actually that we're playing with that my staff loves. That's going to be super helpful, being able to summarize medical records instead of scrolling thousands of pages of hospital bills. So that part I'm really excited about, being able to scale and become more efficient using AI for that. Dropbox has been our go-to forever. That's been my organization system. We run conflicts checks by typing names into Dropbox and make sure that it doesn't come up in any old files. And organizing Dropbox, I think, has been a tool for efficiency. So every lawyer has their trifold folders with correspondence, pleadings, exhibits, whatever else they need in those trifolds. I've done that in Dropbox. So I can go into Dropbox, I've got them chronologically listed. And so having that organization, I think, lets you be more efficient and better prepared to know your case and argue with an adjuster, for example, or even prepare for a trial. So Dropbox is super helpful. We've just done digital phone systems, which is pretty convenient, though that's buggy, I would say. So yeah, tech's a big part, man, and it separates you. If you're, like I said, being compared by court staff, they notice how organized I am using tech versus the people wheeling in suitcases of exhibits. I think that matters.
On your page, you mentioned that you never make decisions for your clients. Instead, you offer them all the options and possible outcomes. In high emotion situations like custody battles or personal injury claims, it's going to be challenging when people want you to just tell them what to do. How are you thinking about that balance between expert guidance and client autonomy?
Yeah, that's a primary focus, man. I say it so much that I don't even think about it anymore because it's automatic for me. And it's different for personal injury versus domestic law, I think. But in a car accident situation, we deal with so many minimum policies where my most common conversation with a client is, yeah, we can sue them. We can get this much from the insurance company. Louisiana's a minimum of 15,000, and we can go for an excess judgment. But here's what that looks like, right? Go through a lawsuit, their car's beat up because of an accident. They could only afford, presumably, a minimum car insurance policy. We don't know what they might have in addition to that you could potentially garnish for the rest of their lives or your life, or seize and sell some asset somewhere that might exist. So that's a tough conversation with particularly somebody who's been seriously injured, and they're looking at a settlement of 15,000. It's hard to, you know how that goes. It's hard to give them any justification from that problem. So pitching to them the concept and the options of an excess judgment, I think, is necessary. Though I finish that conversation with, you don't want to do that. It's rarely going to be productive. But I certainly want them to have those options and understand the possibilities before they pull the trigger on a crappy settlement. And then in divorces, it's way more complicated. And we're talking about people are under the gun of a pretrial conference, for example, where a judge has suggested some custody schedule. And I got to go talk to the client about a decision that's going to affect their children for the next 15 years. And they need to make this decision in the next hour. That's super tricky, but it's important that they have all of their options, particularly, yes, you can settle your case. This is what the judge has recommended, but not ordered. We can still have a trial if you want. We'll go call witnesses. You can put on evidence and you can roll the dice, and the judge can tell you what your custody schedule is going to be, right? Or you can take control of it. And even if it's not the perfect solution, it's your solution. So that's a pretty common conversation, to let the client have control over their children's custody schedule, which is never ideal, right? But that's the situation that we have to try to work through.
Yeah, that's got to be a tough conversation with a mom or a dad that, is going to agree to not see their kids a certain amount of time, and that's not what they want. And so yeah. That's interesting. So you said this associate is licensed in Mississippi. So is that an area that you guys are looking to expand?
Not particularly. No, we're dead center of Louisiana in Alexandria. So it's the fastest way to Mississippi, I think, is 3 hours. The fastest way to Texas is probably 2.5. So we don't push too far outside of Louisiana. If she wants to explore that, we'd certainly never stop her. It's just not very logistically feasible.
Got it. So where are you getting the majority of your cases from? I know you mentioned some referral sources for the family law cases. Where are you actively engaged in trying to procure cases currently?
Yeah, so we're small potatoes, man. There's big advertising lawyers all over, particularly in the Gulf South. Every other billboard you see is a lawyer. Every other advertisement during Saints football games is a lawyer. And while I certainly respect their right to advertise in their First Amendment rights, I think it destroys the reputations of lawyers, and I hate it, especially the corny advertisements. But I can't compete with them, and I'd be a drop in the bucket if I put in the money that I can afford into billboards or TV advertisements. So we don't even try that. We're not even interested in dipping into that bucket. So it's all referrals. It's all referrals and word of mouth and search engine optimization. So I've had a good team for a while, marketing team called Conversations Digital. They go by Legends now. She changed their name a year ago to Legends Marketing. Built my website, have been pushing my SEO, and now I'm trying to integrate AI searches into it too is kind of a twist for how the website's going to be designed. So Google searches, it has been a large part of our intake, but mostly referrals. And so referrals from lawyers that we've developed relationships with, former clients. And so if I'm talking to new lawyers, that's the most important thing I can push. Do good work and make sure your clients understand you did good work. Even if you lose, that you did the best that you can do for them. As long as they understand and appreciate that, hopefully they're sending their friends.
Davey, you've been at this a number of years now. You've built a solid reputation, recovered solid recoveries for a number of clients. What are you most focused on for the next 12 to 24 months?
Scaling, scaling, 100%, man. I'm managing this partnership. We are looking at a new building, hopefully in the next 6 months. We've outgrown this building that I bought 12 years ago. We just don't have enough chair space for the staff, which is a good problem to have. So, yeah, scaling for sure. Logistically, I've always had enough for one and a half of me. And so having the current associate is fantastic, but Carolyn for sure doing her immigration practice, which is boomed here recently with all of those changes. She needs one and a half of her. So bring in another associate or two or three in the next couple of years is the vision. And I think realistic if we can find lawyers that are willing to come to Alexandria, which has been the hardest part. So yeah, so scaling is on my agenda while continuing to do the practice. I mean, helping people and practicing law is what it's about. The business side of it, I would say, is probably more fun to me. I just enjoy that. I enjoy I enjoy doing QuickBooks. I enjoy doing the accounting, pushing the marketing, and managing our people. To me, that part of it is fun. But practicing law is never gonna end for me. We're gonna, as we all do, we'll probably die at our desk.
Where can people find out more about you and your firm, Davey?
Website for sure, hdjonslaw.com. We have just started doing some social media stuff, not necessarily for intake, but really for fun. So we've got our Instagram page, TikTok page. I don't even know how to cite it for you. It's somewhere out there on the internet. Yeah, those are going to be the only sources.
Very good. David, thanks so much for sharing your insights. This was incredibly valuable, and I think people will get a lot out of this. Thanks for joining us on the show.
Good. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.